to me, it is important because it maybe paints the picture that this tornado, what this tornado is doing. You're able to see this. Let's this thing loop here. That's where we're probably, in all likelihood, seeing that debris detection being, thrown up just a little bit here north. So that means this is north of Valley Mines, but headed toward Valley Mines at this point here. So like I said, that's our current tornado warning that's in place. So like I said, let me pull this back out just a little bit, and I'm going to zoom out and kind of get our camera angles reset so that we can kind of track this for you a little better here. Like I said, from State Road V all the way to Fox Farm Road, this is a confirmed tornado that we have at the moment. I'm going to try to get out ahead of this just a little bit, simply because even if we don't get another tornado warning with this particular storm, which we may or may not, that remains to be the case, that remains to be seen. I want to just show you where that potential debris is. Let me get that back here. And so now we're in good shape, and we're going to go back to the bigger radar picture so you guys can take a look at this. Because first and foremost, this is our one lone tornado warning. If we're going to get a storm that's going to produce a tornado that already has, this is it. We followed along with our emergency management partners all night long, and they've been able to say that there was a tornado on the ground here in southern Jefferson County. So that's one thing that was in southern Jefferson County at Route 21 south of DeSoto. This is the one storm, even though some of them are rotating, and I also want to maybe take a look at this one, which I will in a second, but that's on the other side of the river. They all kind of have those characteristics. Now, some of them over the course of the last several minutes have either continued to stay in those characteristics or strengthened. That's where we are with this at this point. To me, where we are at this point is the fact that this is a tornado on the ground. We've watched this loop over the last 15 minutes or so, and in all likelihood, right now, this tornado is right about State Road E from between State Road E, Hardin Road, and State Road V. You're seeing that specifically here. And as we monitor this, I want you to go ahead and pay attention to this in Valley Mines. And by pay attention, I'd like you to go to your basement. I know some of you may not have a basement. Let's go to the bathroom. Let's just go to anywhere that does not have a window, because I don't want all that debris be flying around anymore. So like I said, let's go a little further here. Sunrise School Road, Highway JJ, right across 67. In all likelihood, if you're on 67, you're looking in this direction off to our north and northeast. That's likely where the tornado is. And I'm not sure you're going to be able to see quite as much of it as you want unless it's not raining. On the raining side, it's going to be tough for you to see. But like I said, from Valley Mines, it's this area right here. You have toward the radar wind, then you have away from the radar wind. This is an area right here. This is what we're looking at. We're monitoring that rotation, and that's where we monitor the rotation, and now we have confirmed the tornado. The other thing is that it's also, this debris detection allows us to look at lofted debris that's being picked up by the tornado and thrown up in the atmosphere. That's what this is right here. And it doesn't look like much here, but like I said, when I've looped it, you really are see it in comparison, right? It goes in comparison as I put all three of those in a row to try to paint this picture a little bit better. Here's, in all likelihood, where this tornado is. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more, but I want to go through this one more time to show you. Watch where this is specifically here, and now watch where the wind is. You can see where we have that away from the radar and toward the radar wind. That's that couplet that we so often mention, and then we have the debris being lofted in the atmosphere, which at this point may stretch all the way to Valley Mines. And I'm not sure that it's quite this big, but it's still something that, is probably throwing around some stuff here at the surface. So as we continue to look at this right now. Now I want to zoom in just a little bit more. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is we're still at 7:27. It's supposed to be 3 minutes away from where we are seeing this expire. So it's going to be important to see whether or not they're going to let this continue. And I would bet that they will, based on at least the way the radar looks, right? I would bet that they're going to at least maybe issue an additional tornado warning. So that's what we want to point out here as we look at this. And I would expect that Valley Mines is going to be a part of that if they do that. That means Halifax as well. That means a little bit further downstream here, and I can get further out when they do and if they do that. We're still checking in here, but like I said, the specifics of this are the fact that we have, see now I'm looking at this one here, and I'm going to look at this in a little bit. To me, this has a very similar characteristic at the moment, and let's go take a look at that right now. And I know there's no tornado warning with that, but just based on the fact that we're looking at both of these storms that are rotating exactly like this, tells me that we may see an environment down here which is allowing these storms to rotate and produce tornadoes, because we've already seen one, and this one right here, in all likelihood, could be the same thing. So I want to just give you an early heads up, and that's south of Illinois 3 here. Let's go take this out on a broad perspective here, because I want to get to that one, and it's a little easier for me to do that when I'm just out of this part of the computer. So let me go to that one here, like I said, and then I'll find out. This is right over Maystown, and in my opinion, that's something I want to pay close attention to, simply from a rotation standpoint. I'll pull this back into myself, and I know this is not where we have a, I can look at both of these storms and look how they're both in a similar set of characteristics. And while there's no tornado warning with this right now, and I haven't looked at the rotation, honestly, because we've been focusing on this one, but just from a radar signature standpoint, it's not out of the question that at some point, that if you're in Maystown, you're probably seeing that. Even if you're in Prairie du Rocher, even if you're in Redbud or Ruma, I want to continue to focus on this specific storm as well. Like I said, here in the next few minutes, and let's see if there's going to be an additional. It looks like they're going to give us an update on that here shortly. But let's go ahead and look at. Let's go ahead and pull up this right about here. I'm going to go up and look at the velocity on this other one. To me, like I said, and I know that we don't have a tornado warning for this just yet, but to me, this is worth watching at the very least, especially based on what the last one did, right? To me, this is worth watching. If you're in Maystown, you're in Fultz, that's, to me, our next storm that we're going to watch, simply because when we look at this one and zoom out, it looks an awful lot like the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and actually pull this out, and I'm going to create a new set for that, because I think that could be our next area of concern that I want to pay attention to. So let me go to this one specifically. I'm going to save that one. Cool. And then now I can kind of maneuver things around a little bit more, a little bit better that way. Like I said, we are now at 7:30. Let's see if they've updated this one, and they still haven't updated it. Like I said, that tornado warning is in place till 7:30, but it's 7:30. Let's see. So okay, so they are not going to issue an additional tornado warning for this storm. And what I'm going to do here is, they said that it has lifted, it has weakened considerably, and they're not going to issue an additional tornado warning. So if what we're going to do here is, I'm going to switch to 5+. I'm going to let you get back to regular programming. But that was a confirmed tornado. So a lot of the times we talk about these, and you worry about, well, we talked to you for 30 minutes. That was another confirmed tornado on a very low end risk day. There are other areas that I'm watching. If you want to download the 5+ app, I'm going to switch over there and stream on that. And I'll cut back in if we have additional issues throughout the rest of the night. But like I said, we had at least one confirmed tornado. We're watching these other areas throughout over the next hour, and we'll keep you posted here. I'll update you on 5+. If we want to get back to regular programming, they can scan that. You've been watching tornado warning, tornado coverage here, and our Weather Impact team on our Weather Impact Alert Day. I'm meteorologist Gary Frank. We'll keep you up to date on 5+. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. All right, if you guys are following along here on 5+, I've been tracking a couple of these storms as we, okay, and they finally got rid of my tornado warned storm here. Like I said, this is, one of the issues that we've been dealing with here, where we continue to see, like I said, a couple of spots of concern, and that was one that we definitely had the tornado at. Like I mentioned, let me look at this specific storm here now. There's a couple that we continue to monitor here. I want to zoom out just a little bit here. I'll pull that out. This is so much better to go over there. Let's see. Pull that out. Much, much better. All righty. Going to do that. Okay, so I know you guys can probably hear me, so I'm going to do that for at least a second. I'm going to pull back out. like I said, as we continue to look at a couple of these storms, this one near Maystown still is something I want to pay attention to, because I'm not sure that we're necessarily seeing a tornado with this. Obviously, there's no tornado warning, but still, even as we look at some of the velocity, it's something to at least pay attention to, right? I'm not sure that we might be seeing some of these low wall clouds here at this point, but that's one of the main things that we're looking at in terms of where we're seeing any sort of the potential for tornadoes. Like I said, these two storms, this one has a history of producing a tornado. The tornado had lifted, so even though it looks similar to this, those are the spots that I want to continue to monitor here as we look into this hour. So those are the things that we're going to continue to, really over the next several hours, we're going to continue to look at these types of storms. From Maystown, right about here, and I know you guys can just hear me because we had to move all the cameras here, and I know you guys can just hear me here on 5 Plus. Had to move all the cameras here because we had a lot of moving parts in here, especially when you're driving this bus by yourself. It's a little different, but I do want to keep you posted. While we don't have any active tornado warnings, let's look at some of the areas of rotation, and you'll notice that over the last hour, we saw this spot right about here create just enough rotation for a tornado. It doesn't even look that impressive here, does it? But it did loft debris, and I think that's what's important here. You could see this being lofted, and that's that caused a confirmed tornado. Let's watch how that lofted debris, right about there, right there. That's where it lofted debris, and that's where we really can see things, right? It even got further than that, and then it was gone, right? So to me, that's where we had to watch it. Now we're in good shape, but still, I think, at this point, that storm has weakened a little bit. This is the one near Maystown. To me, it doesn't have the structure that it once did, right? Like, this is the area that we look at. It doesn't quite have the structure that it once did. So, that from an important standpoint, I think let's look at, see, this rotation is a little bit more, this is a little bit more broad now, right? They don't have quite those bright red colors. They still exist, but like I said, these are the types of tornadoes, kind of like what we had the other day in Chesterfield, that caused a brief issue, and they pop up, and to me, even without much favorability, it was raining all day, there still was enough with these storms that we just had to watch them. And like I said, you see some of these little brief areas of rotation, they drop a quick tornado, and then they move on. And that's kind of where we are. Like I said, if you are watching and you're in St. Louis, you're in Wildwood, you're anywhere north, you just simply don't have there's no more risk for tonight. These storms are not going to be severe. We're not going to see anything like that tonight. But like I said, it's this area right about here. These are the spots that we'll continue to monitor. And I'm not sure that we won't get one more, but it's going to be close. A lot of this is moving out of here, but if we're going to get one more, it could be from that storm. The way that these storms work sometimes is they cycle. So you may see no rotation, the tornado may lift, and then it drops again, and that's not out of the question. So, like I said, from that standpoint, I think that's kind of what we're dealing with here at this hour, where we still have to continue to monitor this as we look at the potential. Like I said, I think overall we have that opportunity, but there's nothing on this that really tells me that it's rotating or going to produce a tornado. The other thing that I've kind of showed you as well is, like, this one's a little stronger, but it's not quite as much because, while it's got a little bit more structure, it doesn't have as much lightning as it once did, which really is important. Now, this one still has some pretty decent lightning, and if you're going to pick a spot in between, that's where it could be, but like, look at this thing in comparison to where it was. That storm structure to me is not quite as good. So, from a standpoint of where we are with that storm structure to me is not quite as good as it once was. So that's kind of where we are with this, right? So Let me pull this back out on full screen, and I'm going to switch that camera to me, actually, while we're thinking about it. I do want you to, I still want to pay attention to these storms because I think it's important, but I'm not sure that we're going to see another tornado the rest of the night. But there definitely was a tornado there. That was confirmed. So, you know, from a standpoint of, you know, where we are with this, that was definitely a tornado. That was a confirmed tornado based on where we saw with the radar. Like I said, that's the area that we're looking at specifically. So now that I got this back on me, you can probably see me a little bit more. So pull this back out to me for a second. This area right here, this is not as impressive, but it's still an area of concern, you know? And so from a standpoint of looking at these storms, yeah, they have a little bit in terms of where the rotation is, but I'm not sure that we're seeing anything in regards to rotation enough to produce a tornado. Let's check in with our emergency management partners and see if we have any updates from them as well, because they got some eyes on the ground here a little bit. So still in pretty good shape here. So that's kind of where we are right now in terms of where that is. So let me pull this back out. Let me see. Let me pull that back out. Let me see if I can do this here. Open that. I don't want to do that. So let me see. We'll do that here for just a second. Like I said, it's this area right here that I'm going to let loop. To me, we're not seeing quite the structure that we once did. So at this moment, first and foremost, we do not have any active tornado warnings. We don't have any active tornado watches. And really, if you're north of this, you have no issue. This is really, I would say, Farmington, Bloomsdale, Prairie du Rocher, St. Genevieve, Sparta, Chester, Perryville, even Redbud, right? While I don't think there will be another tornado based on looking at this, it's not out of the question that we see another area of rotation. However, we're running into the fact that the sun is setting, especially closer to where these storms are, and has done so earlier. So to me, that's where we run out of a little instability, and you're going to watch some of these things fade a little bit. That's kind of where we are, I think, at this point. From a standpoint of if these are rotating or if they look as strong, to me, I'm not sure that they do in that standpoint, right? Like they don't have quite the pop. If I loop this the last hour, you can see that there are areas of rotation, sure, but there was more at one time. And even looking at this one, you know, this could be another area near Fultz, between Fultz and Redbud. But like I said, from a standpoint of, is this actually going to produce a tornado? I'm not sure that we're there at that point. Let me see if you guys have any questions on the chat line. I was talking for about 30 minutes, and I want to update you guys and see if I can at least answer a couple of these things while I'm talking, because I think at some point I'll probably put this on a looping radar for you, so that way I can check in again if I need to and update you on a few of these things. You know, like I said, normally some of these are like, you know, we're expecting, you know, a tornado or severe weather. And today was like one of these days where it rained all day, right? It wasn't really an exciting day for severe weather. But then all of a sudden, we get a tornado. And my computer is incredibly slow. So let's check. Let's check to see what's up. See if anybody has checked in. We have had nobody text me, so that's good. What are the damaging winds for Sunday tomorrow? Somebody asked, that was a 314560, asked this, I think, right before that tornado warning. And the damaging winds for Sunday tomorrow will be up to 60 miles an hour as well. I think that's where we are on the high side as well. Somebody just texted me, 636-383, said, I'm in St. Peter's right now and I'm seeing movement a tad. Well, let's check for you in St. Peter's. I can't imagine we have anything that's much of an issue, but I'm happy to check for you. I think you're pretty good. Yeah, St. Peter's is going to be good. I just wanted to double check for you. You know, we'll look at these storms behind, but they really are going to run into the fact that the atmosphere has already been worked over. So here, you know, here in St. Peter's, you're not really going to have that issue. If you could see movement, you're probably just looking at these clouds, and there's going to be a lot of low clouds. Let's see. Somebody asked about Farmington. I want to make sure I shout out there. Let's see. How does Farmington look? That is from 573-315. So good evening to you. Farmington, I still want you to at least pay attention and be aware of things. There's none of these storms right here that really excite me all that much in terms of their severe production capability. If I just look at this from a wind standpoint, you know, you look at this, there's nothing that excites me even as I loop this the last hour. There's not, I mean, there's a little weak rotation near Irondale, so that's why I want us to keep at least pay attention, but there's nothing that jumps out at me and says Farmington needs to worry about this in the next half an hour. But I do want you to just be aware, and I'll pop back on when I go off or let you know if we do see an issue after the fact. But to me, you know, even looking at this one north of Prairie du Rocher, still the wind is not a tight enough wind where we may see any issue, although you could make a case for it, right? Let's see if they've got any updates from there. So no, we're okay with that right now. There's been no more updates from our friends at the National Weather Service and emergency management partners here as we continue to look at this. The main story, let me get back to the chat line and I'll pull this on full screen for you here so you can see. There's a couple of interesting storms. I think that's the best way to call them, is interesting. Let's see. I was stuck on Wednesday's storm the other day, similar structure. Yeah, good call. Yeah, 636-383 was asking about St. Peter's. Yeah, similar structure. I agree. I understand what you're saying. Let's see. I need to know, is there a possible tornado in Farmington, Missouri? Not right now. There's not. I do want you to be aware of the next 30 minutes of a potential changing conditions, but there's no tornado right now in Farmington. That is from 573-430-1487. 713 said, Arnold, the sirens were going off in Arnold a little while ago. Probably part of the county, you know, it sounds part of the county sirens. So that's you're over and done with in Arnold. You are in the clear. 314-680 said, will there be any tornadoes in the St. Louis area tonight? There will not be any tornadoes in the St. Louis area tonight. We are in good shape. 636-208 said, how's Valley Mines? Valley Mines is safe now. 848 asked, will there be a watch tonight? There will not be a watch tonight. There may be a watch tomorrow afternoon, but there is not going to be a watch. Let's see. You saw a tornado in Farmington. Well, I'm gonna double check for you, but I'm telling you, you know, like I said, it's not out of the question that some of these clouds are going to be rotating. If we're going to pick a spot, for you here, from Irondale here, you know, like I said, I don't have any rotation in Farmington right now. Let's see what it looks like for you. Yeah. So nothing here is exciting, and this little brief rotation in Irondale, you probably can't see in Farmington. So I think you're safe there. So I just want to give you a little peace of mind. Some of these storms at some point are going to start to push together, and then they won't rotate the way that they are right now. So that's one thing. Let's put this back on full screen so that you guys, I'm going to go back to the text line. Usually I bring my laptop, go over there. Let's see. Somebody asked, how come it isn't being broadcast on Channel 5 if it's in our viewing area? That's from 314-566. That's a good question. The reason for it, the best way to tell you, the reason for that is the fact that it was on Channel 5 when we had the tornado warning. When its tornado warning is off, we go back to 5+. That way we can try to keep as many people happy as possible and do our due diligence by keeping everyone safe. Because, obviously, If we're on forever and there's nothing going on, then we're blowing out programming, and then people get upset with us. And some people get upset with us even when there's an actual tornado, like there just was. So we try to find the happy medium, and this is definitely allows us to do that as well. So let's see what my next question was as I go back over here. I've got, is Olympian Village in the clear? And you are in the clear because you did have some issues earlier. So that was from 636-543. You are in the clear. Cool. Asked how Valley Mines and Bonne Terre are. Valley Mines and Bonne Terre are in pretty good shape here. I do want to zoom in a little bit and kind of show you here, because you can see where there's DeSoto and Olympian Village. Like I said, you're in much better shape than you were here. We do have some rain in Peevely and Imperial, but that's not going to be any issue. But like I said, let's go down to the south and Bonne Terre. Bonne Terre, you're on the other side of things now. I can show you where that is. To me, you're on the other side of any severe weather, so you're done. You're done with this. I just want to watch that storm near Irondale, simply because it has some very weak rotation, and if it got stronger, it could produce something. To me, we're running out of time for that. If there's a storm that's going to do it, it's this one. And I'm not sure that we're going to see it from that, even as we look at the wind. You know, you can see a little bit more rotation here, so it's something that I'm paying attention to. But it just doesn't have the other structure at this point. So, you know, to me, that's kind of where we are at this point as we continue to monitor that. Let me pull back out on this. See. Okay. Cool there. I've got that. Let's see. We go back to the check the chat line here. What about the storms and rain come through Wentzville? No, there's no concern. That's a good question. 615-603 asked, the storms and rain about to come through Wentzville, any concern? No concern with those. I really think that we're kind of done with severe weather here at this point. When will it end? You're going to see things in Farmington end within the next 30 minutes. Should Bismarck be on alert for the Irondale rotation? That's 573-315. So let's double check for you. I'm checking with those guys. You know, I think you should just pay attention. I think in 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, this is certainly not a go to your basement situation. Absolutely not. But just be aware. I don't see any reason that it's going to get stronger. There shouldn't be any reason. There's not that much fuel with that. But just be aware and just follow along for the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'm not sure that I'm going to talk to you for 10 to 15 more minutes, because obviously I did some yelling at the game the other night, and my voice doesn't recover very well. And then I slept with my mouth open because there's something in the air. So one of those deals. My voice just gets shot in 2 seconds. So it's one of those type deals. That's all you can do. So, but like I said, that storm is weakening quite a bit. So from a standpoint of whether or not you're able to have any issues, it's still raining really hard from south of Redbud or in Redbud, but I'm not sure that I see a thick enough rotation here as we look at. So let's look at that specifically here. Go back to the chat line, see if we got any new ones. Is Fenton in the clear? Yes, you are in the clear, 314-776. Should Sparta have anything to worry about? No, you do not have anything to worry about. You are in good shape in Sparta. So those are 2 things there as we look at the, and to me, let's go back with this one right now just a little bit as I talk to you, because I want to share what this storm looked like 15 minutes ago, and watch how it had that structure right there, right? That's the structure that we look at, but watch over the last few minutes, it's kind of flattened out. That's a good sign. You know, that's a good sign. This is still a good thunderstorm, but it's flattening out considerably. You know, same for this one in Irondale. Watch this. You know, it's still got a little structure, but it doesn't really have the rotation that at one point some of these did. This is the one that still had enough to where we at least considered it. But like I said, that's the one lone area at this moment. Put this back on there. And yep. Like I said, that is the specific area right there. Okay. That is our main story right now. Like I said, I think that in general, we're trending up. So that's the main story that I want to share with you here as we come up close. Let's see. See, somebody asked, do they think storms tomorrow will be worse than today? They're a little bit anxious about it. I'm still not 100% sold on the storms tomorrow, quite honestly. I think they have the potential to be a little bit worse in that sense. I know we had a confirmed tornado. I think that there's more of a potential because it is going to be a lot warmer, and we're going to see that consistently throughout the day. But there are some other things in play, like warmer air above the surface that may limit development. So I think some of us are going to stay completely rain-free, but others may be impacted as well. So to me, that's what we have to watch out for. And this storm still doesn't really want to rotate anymore. So they just all, you know, this is the only one that I really want to look at consistently. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this on a loop. That way I can track it for you out of here. And I'm going to go kind of catch up with the team here and kind of give them an update. Because we have no active severe weather here at this point. Pull this back to me so I can talk to you here. We have no active severe weather at this point, right? And I don't see any reason that we will anymore tonight. We had that one tornado. Pull this back. I want to make sure I can loop this for you so you guys can see what's going on. Because it's really this storm that I want to highlight. Trying to do this in the background so that I can go catch up with those guys and kind of give them an update on where they should go look at for some damage and things like that, especially for tomorrow. Let's see, take that out of there. Take that out of there. All right. Loop that for a second. This may go black for a half a second, so bear with me in that standpoint. All right, so now you guys can see, I'm gonna let this radar loop. I'm feeling pretty good about the way these are weakening, but I want you guys to have radar to be able to see. So I'm gonna let this loop, and I'll have these other products up for you as well. You'll probably hear some music in the background So, you know, and I'll pop back in to check in a little bit. I want to go catch up with the team to make sure that we're settled in for the rest of the night. So we have updates on that. And of course, I'll see you guys in a little bit.